Mark Briscoe and MJF come out. This pickle chant is over. They're all chanting "Tiny Pickle." There's signs for it. Wasn't wearing the T-shirt though this week. I guess not necessary, but they are selling that thing.
And MJF actually sells pickles. Like he's got a brand of pickles.
Yeah. Like I think that was
I'm sure he loves
the tie-in. Yeah, maybe he's MJF's Tiny Pickles. Maybe that'll be like a brand that he puts out. MJF is he's going so hard at Mark Briscoe and the Texas fans. He's doing a Southern accent. He's calling him a redneck, a hick, and tells Briscoe to go back home to his meth lab in Dumpster Fire, Delaware, and feed your 95 inbred children, you poor. And he said that Briscoe said, I'm going to beat your ass on Saturday when the bell rings. I'm not fazed by any of your words because I'm proud to be a redneck and work hard. See, MJF, you're a rich guy, but I have my own riches, my family. You're rich, but you're morally bankrupt and you have no soul. I love when Mark Briscoe gets analytical and he says, I can see right through you. And I know what you're going to do. You're going to say something about my brother to try and get into my head and get under my skin. So come on, just come out and say it. And MJF says, I would never say anything bad about Jay Briscoe. He was one of the best wrestlers ever, one of the best human beings to ever step inside the ring. However, I pity your brother who now has to look down and see what you've become, Mark, watching one of the best tag teams in the world, and now you've become a joke. And if Jay was here and he walks right up and is speaking right into Mark's face, if he was here, what he would tell you is, chicken, it shouldn't have been me in that accident. It should have been you. And the whole crowd just cringes. And Mark attacks MJF, and right as he's about to hit the Jay Driller, the Hurt Syndicate come out and they get jumped by jet speed with the stolen tag belts as MJF runs through the crowd with Mark going after him. So let's put a pause on the segment to get your thoughts of the first half here before we get into our next program.
I think I really enjoyed my first talkie talk. This was really great. I continue to be surprised at the level of depth that we're getting from like the Mark Briscoe character. Like he's not somebody who just is what you would expect from appearances. He's not even just a guy who like you can rely upon to like deliver a very charismatic moment. He's somebody who puts a lot of thought into like countering the words of a bully here. You know, he had some really great words here. He essentially said, MJF, you are rich in possessions, but I'm rich in family and friends, things that actually matter. And I think that's just a great reminder for all of us in life about what to actually focus on. I also think getting ahead of the bully and mentioning and predicting that he's going to be talking about his brother allowed MJF to, I think, deliver like a bit more of a well thought out and less predictable insult that ultimately did still talk about his brother, but did it in I think a much more creative and interesting way. So these two had a great interaction. They have great chemistry together, and I think they'll be obviously the focal point of the entire gauntlet.
Yeah, they've certainly got a lot more out of this program with MJF than they did with him and Jeff Jarrett.
I would say so.
Still waiting on that one.
Yeah. No, MJF usually has pretty good chemistry with everybody, but that was a miss earlier.
Yeah, I think they did this in such a way like that I'd be curious if anyone came away with this, like unless you just feel like Jay Briscoe should be completely off limits, which I do understand that thought process. But quite honestly, I feel like Jay Briscoe of all people would think this would be a great promo segment. Listen, there's plenty of people who would believe that, like, hey, it's for a wrestling angle. There are things like they just don't want to have associated.
I guess I'm only confused because the person to be most offended by that would be the willing partner in this scene, right? So if you're not getting clearance, like if Mark Briscoe is okay with it, why shouldn't the rest of us be?
Well, I mean, you can compare this remember when Charlotte and Paige did the deal and Reed was brought up in it. And there was just so much negativity toward that.
Because Rick didn't know.
Rick didn't know. And it was also just the case of, listen, like ultimately it's like if your audience is turned off by something, they're turned off by something. I mean, that's where it is. Like, I wasn't in this segment.
But MJF is like, it wouldn't be an MJF segment if he didn't turn off, or at least like reach the very border of turning somebody off. So I guess like that's why I'm not so like I was okay with it, because I've come to expect this sort of thing from MJF. You know,
I think they did it in like a way that you were like, I thought that the way that they brought it up, it didn't feel like it was just like cheap for just shock's sake. Like they are like, it was for the service of this program that they are trying to build up, and did it in such a way where it was like, it was Mark that was the target.
It was cheap heat. Like, and Briscoe pointing it out beforehand, basically like, you know, told us that, hey, watch out for the MJF cheap heat. And MJF went there anyway. And it was like the type of heat where like, it's almost there to kind of intentionally make you groan rather than, to me, actually offend. And the groan is, I think, what he's after, because he is a heel.
They got around it too when like MJF with Jeff Jarrett, and like he did bring up like Owen in the segment with
he
Jarrett.
Brought up his alcoholism, like all the taboo subjects is kind of what you would expect, right? Briscoe is amazing, and
I'm just gonna say, this is quite the buildup for like the first 2 minutes of a battle royal.
Well, I think that it'll end with these two. You know, like you'll get some mystical interaction in there, but I think it'll start with these two, and I think it can only end with these two, because they are like, this is actually essentially a singles match that they're kind of building up to.
Well, and there should be a bigger blow off to this than Saturday, I think, between these two.
Yeah. I also wonder, okay, so we're going to do our predictions a little bit later, but like, are we completely, like most people are probably predicting an MJF win, but can we completely shut the door on Mark Briscoe winning this thing?
I wouldn't shut the door on that option. I think there's a few interesting options. Like, it's all in what you're building up toward. Like, you're not necessarily, it's not like you're getting a pay-per-view title match out of this. You're getting a title match out of this.
Like,
and
MJF
Mark Briscoe going for the title against Hangman, against whoever. Yes.
I think MJF and Paige, yes, feels very natural, heel babyface match, but Mark Briscoe versus Paige in a double babyface match also feels massive, and I think it could be a very successful storytelling. Like in Mark Briscoe, I see a future world champion, and I certainly wouldn't have said that many years ago, but he's shown me enough like depth and just charisma. He's got a sympathetic backstory, and he's a great wrestler. And he continues to just like get the crowd with every single one of these appearances. So what more do you need, you know? So
there are some similarities between this and like a Sami Zayn type of character, the one that is like not the obvious pick to be in that.
They're not conventionally attractive, I think is maybe what you're trying to say, or at least they don't look like a Ken doll.
Well, and they're also ones that I would not just do, like you wouldn't just. It's a long-term story that your audience are attached to these characters in such a way that if they ever were to win that big title, it would be such a big deal.
Yeah.
But if you were just a new fan, you probably wouldn't have, like, you need to know the history of these characters and be following them through all the times they've come up short through all these years, and they're not pegged to be top guys.
And Mark Briscoe is ascending to that level where, like, I mean, like a Mick Foley, you know, where like we love him enough, he's been around long enough, and he's been consistent enough and entertaining enough that I think everybody would be really happy to see a world title campaign and a world title run through him.
It's G1 Climax season, and that means the Post Wrestling Cafe has you covered with podcasts covering every single tournament match. Plus, we've got Rewind Away going back to 2005 to review Vengeance featuring Triple H versus Batista in a Hell in a Cell match. John and Way are going to be reviewing F1 the movie starring Brad Pitt, and of course, XL editions of Rewind a Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown. Ad-free with the news of the week and your feedback. Sign up now at postwrestlingcafe.com. So the other half of this is Jet Speed attacking using the belts, and Shelton is run into the steps. They just dominate. Lashley and Benjamin, MVP is knocked down, and then the Patriarchy come down. So it is now, and Kip Sabian's involved here. So it's like 5-on-3, if we're including MVP here, and they get a chair, and they hit 3 concertos onto the knee of Bobby Lashley. This was so extreme that you almost got the thought they were taking Bobby Lashley out of this match. But I don't think that is the case. No. Benjamin was like staggering out of the corner and nearly was out of position for the tornado kick, and Bailey just like adjusted his hips and still hit this kick, and it ended with a UFO splash by Kevin Knight. But it was just total domination by the patriarchy and jet speed, and now Bobby Lashley can sell in this match because he's got one leg going into it, and Benjamin as well selling the effects of this. So if they still come out with these belts, I mean, I don't know what this angle would have achieved, but they're trying to give you some plausible reason that the 2 monsters of the division could somehow lose to 2 teams in a 4-on-2 scenario.
Yeah, this whole scenario is really bizarre. This entire build to this tag team title match has been really bizarre. Okay, like, like just even in this scenario, let's try to break this down. Okay, I do feel like it's possible that maybe Tony has been listening to like all the online criticism of just how unbeatable the Hurt Syndicate have looked, and how like maybe
totally beatable jet speed have been portrayed.
Yeah, there's that, and maybe like also like rumors that are out there about like questioning about whether or not like Hurt Syndicate are willing to job, which like I don't put much sort of like attention to, but maybe they are, because it feels like maybe between Saturday and also today, like they were trying to level the playing field, and they tried to level it a lot, but at the same time it's incredibly weird because you've now like done such a 2-on-1 handicap angle for the heel team. So like going into the match, like I almost feel a little bad for like Bobby Lashley here, you know, getting this like 4-on-1 beatdown. So I think the whole thing has been a bit of a mess, you know.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what the final product is on Saturday. It's this has not been the smoothest build up, and of the main of all the matches on this show. Like I would, Cole and Fletcher has not been anything like that's out of this world, but yeah, this tag title match has probably been the most flawed in terms of promotion.